The Ukrainians have closed the back south of the same river by reaching the river and thus cutting off all the Russian soldiers, up to 3,000 in this area. They still can try to supply themselves over the river, but the bridges there have been hit, and by now the supply can only work over pontoon bridges, which are constantly attacked. We'll talk about this as well as about the other changes in Kursk Oblast in the situational picture, as well as about Russia apparently preparing its public that the Ukrainians are, at least for now, here to stay in Kursk. They don't expect to be able to evict them in the near future. We'll start off with the two maps from different sites. I have Petrenko's pro-Ukrainian map here. Petrenko is a pro-Ukrainian mill blogger. It shows the current extent, and he also already has the riverbank in Ukrainian hands. And here we have the pro-Russian Riba. They are showing also the Ukrainian having at least the influence right to the river itself. They still show it as some gray area, but you see the overall picture is somewhat similar. The changes along the front line that can be observed we start off with Komarovka. This is down here. It's close to the river, and in the western part of the Ukrainian advance here. A Ukrainian tank is in the town while it's being attacked with an FPV drone, showing us that the Ukrainians already have presence inside of the town. Whether it's under their control as of now is obviously not perfectly clear simply from that picture. A little bit more important is this geolocation here, where an FPV drone hits a building where Ukrainian soldiers are in, because this is geolocated right here on the riverbank in the town to the north here. In this town, I think, yeah, I'm probably not going to try to pronounce it. Krasno-Oktyabrsskoye, or something like this. So they have closed it down here. This means that for the Russians, there is no more way out towards the east. This here is closed now. The bridges at Glushkovo and Svanoe and at Karish have been hit. The bridge in Karish has been hit again, so by now there seems to be still some fragments standing up, but anything but pedestrian traffic seems to be impossible by now, and the pontoon bridges that were directly east of Glushkovo and roughly up here are consistently being attacked, and reports are that they are consistently being hit. So the Russian soldiers in this whole area here are now mostly cut off from supply. We should expect the Ukrainians to advance further to the west fairly soon, as it seems to be untenable for the Russians to keep the supply lines open with them being forced to set up pontoon bridges this close to the Ukrainian front line. The Russians say they retook the town of Natchev. Russian claims are this way. This is here northeast of Ruskoye Perechnoe, this town here. Interesting is that I never saw a claim by the Ukrainians that they had taken the town. We know that they were directly south of it. They were in the forest here, but that the town itself was ever in Ukrainian hands is unknown. So either they might have been there in between and have actually been pushed out, or they have never been there, and the Russians are just claiming a success where there wasn't one. Then we have a image where we see the Ukrainian advance in Ruskaya Konopelka. Ruskaya Konopelka is directly east of Sucha. This is this here. And in this video, which is being spread around, is kind of confusing. There's a Russian BMP-3 that shoots at short distances and misses a Cossack APC, APC or MRAP, probably somewhere in between in the classification. Then a BMP-2 pops up, misses the Cossack as well, drives forward and gets annihilated by the BMP-3. The BMP-2 seems to have the V sign, so it seems to be of the Russian side, but it's unclear clear. Some claims are no, the barrel is hiding the bar that's closing it to the lambda symbol that the Ukrainians use. A longer video even shows that the BMP-3 before missed an M113, also from extremely short distances. Like they were actually missing from like 50 to 100 meters. They were still managed to miss the target in this fight here. But while we know that a BMP-2 was destroyed here, it's not 100% sure whether it was actually red on red or whether it was a Ukrainian BMP-2 that got destroyed by the Russians. What we do know is that the fighting happened inside here of the town, shows us that the Ukrainians have been in there, but the Russians were defending there. Ukrainians managed to disembark some soldiers, which then got attacked by FPV drones. So it's unclear. The town itself does not seem to be in Ukrainian hands at this very moment. Also, a geolocation video shows a Ukrainian Baba Yaga drone attacking targets at Spalnoye, which would indicate that Spalnoye is not solidly under Ukrainian control, as the pro-Ukrainian deep state map here indicates as well. So this is still contested area here around. And then we have the indications that the 56th VDV regiment is being redeployed towards Kursk. This is the account of a well-known member of this unit. They are being redeployed, and there have been pictures taken and videos of them being moved that have been geolocated. We see columns of Russian military moving in this direction, with their forces being on the way to be redeployed there. The interesting part there is the reinforcements do not come from the Eastern Front. Again, they are coming from the south, as we've seen so far, that Russia mostly is redeploying units from Kharkiv, Kherson, and Zaporizhzhia, so only from regions that are secondary to them. The redeployments from the Eastern Front, especially Toretsk and Pokrovsk, in these areas, there's barely any redeployment. The Russians try to keep the momentum there, try to keep their troops there, try to use the weakness of the Ukrainians there, which is being proven, while only weakening fronts that are not very active from their side, and where they think it's where they can adjust their offensive activity or even give it up for the time being to stop the Ukrainians. This right now leads to a solution, though, or this leads to some developments, as the Russians are not willing to cut down their own offensive movements, and thus the amount of troops they can redeploy is fairly limited. The opposition media Medusa is now publishing a long article going through various points. One of this is that the Kremlin has said to its state media that that they have to expect that the Ukrainians are going to stay inside of Kursk for the time being. Interesting also is that a survey is being mentioned. The amount of anxious and concerned Russians has risen since the invasion from 8 to 46%, 45. I apologize. So we have, since the invasion happened, before barely anyone was too concerned about this war. Now the number has risen to almost 50% here. Almost half of the Russians are now concerned because of the war, as Ukraine managed to bring the war into Russia with ground forces as well. The propagandists are working, though, to normalize the invasion. According to Medusa, there are being three arguments being used. We have them here. The enemy didn't really penetrate Russian territory. This is kind of true. Like, they are in some tens of kilometers. Russia is a fairly big country, and they are still away from serious civilian cities. Like Kursk or something is still roughly 50 kilometers away from the front line, 50, 45, something around this. And they claim that the defeat will be happening anyways. It's inevitable. And at the same time, to take the territory back will take some time, and the Russians will have to have some patience in this regard. This shows us that the Russian side, the willingness to redeploy units towards the Kursk region is limited, as they see the clear weakness of the Ukrainians in the Donbas, and they're obviously willing to accept continued Ukrainian occupation of 1,000, maybe 2,000 square kilometers in Kursk when they can at the same time advance in the Donbas here. Then we have Russia showing us at the same time that they don't have enough soldiers for their war aims and for preventing Ukraine to go on the offensive as well. They still have options to handle this, and they are being discussed in the article as well. Either that there could be another mobilization. It's being discussed now for a couple of weeks that Russia might be forced to start a second wave of mobilization, or that they might use more conscripts. Now, conscript the next cycle is on October 1st. So from then on, the 1-year conscripts are supposed to be released from service. We'll have to see how much, to which degree this is going to happen. And while Russia can legally use its conscripts to defend its own territory, so far it has been, the Russians have tried to avoid it, using them in combat. Now it seems that they are more focusing on this. If this doesn't create too much backlash, I think is the word, then we can expect more of this. This should be obvious, because according to Russian understanding, the 5 oblasts that have been annexed are also Russian territory. So from the Russian legal standpoint, the Russians could use conscripts to fight in the Donbas. They could use them in Kherson, in Zaporizhia, everywhere there could the conscripts fight. And I guess this will be some testing the water here, how the public will react to losses among conscripts when they have to fight the Ukrainians here. That was already it from me for today. This situation report, the situational picture is somewhat smaller, as in Kursk the speed of the Ukrainian advance is slowing down. They are still advancing, even though locally they seem to be already being pushed back, at least in individual positions. The biggest expectation we can have right now, obviously, is what is going to happen in this area here, whether the Ukrainians will be able to take the whole area here, roughly 700 square kilometers, and occupy it, reaching the natural barrier of the same river and allowing to themselves to protect their flank in the south. This seems to be likely right now, as the bridges over it have been hit and as the pontoon bridges are continuously being attacked, but we'll keep an eye on this in the future. And if you don't want to miss this, then I would invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. If you like this situational picture, please give it a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. And if you have something to say, sounded almost bad, didn't it? Like, if you want to leave a comment, feel invited to use the comment section for this. This can lead to very interesting discussions. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description, but that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.